What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the Bama Insider YouTube channel, Championship Edition. It's the national championship of college football will take place. I'm sure many of you watch it probably after it's over. We're going to talk Alabama, though. So we went a little bit earlier here on the live portion so that we can get you guys that want to watch the game there. Or maybe you're going to watch it during the game. But we're going to talk Alabama football today. It's a little bit disappointing that the Crimson Tide aren't in today's game. And maybe we're spoiled. We've been there many, many times. And, we'll talk about how the next team's going to get themselves there. Before we do anything else, though, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up as you hang out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. And hit the bell so you know when we go live. Our show's brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. And hammer the message board hard. A Roll Tide Bama fan. Roll Tide all you guys that are hanging out with us on the show. I see Tammy's on, and I know a lot of you guys are. As well. So awesome, guys. Roll Tide. Let's bring on Clint Lamb from BamaInsider.com. You know him from there. Been covering the Crimson Tide and doing a great job all season here for us as we've become part of On 3. Roll Tide, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Mick. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. It's a little disappointing not sitting in a press box somewhere watching Alabama get ready to play a football game, but at the same time, it's going to be a really exciting offseason from a personnel standpoint, from a coordinator standpoint, a lot of potential changes or changes that have already happened. So it's going to be pretty fun and pretty interesting. So I'm looking forward to it, brother. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. I mean, won my first ever fantasy football championship, so I'm really proud of that. He had two guys that were in the game that got suspended and canceled. And so he got to play those guys, league vote. And then still they couldn't beat me. So felt good about that. First one ever. I don't know that I'll ever play again, but hey, 20 years I've been chasing it.
Do you do the week 18 thing?
No, week 17, but
you got to, man. I think that's one of the most terrible. Anybody that is running up against the end of the NFL schedule and you've got teams that are sitting key players out and stuff, like you never wanted to come. Yeah. I mean, I think one year I had Le'Veon Bell and Ezekiel Elliott, and they were like the only two teams, the Steelers and the Cowboys were the only two teams in the NFL that set their starters that particular final week. And so both of them, I'd ridden them all season and I had the best team and ended up losing the fantasy championship. And I said, I will never compete in another league that does the week 18 stuff.
Wait until the conference championship games are week 18, with the college football playoff and, you don't want to get anybody hurt and all this. It could happen. I mean, that's a topic for another day, but I'm with you, watching the Ravens and the Bengals yesterday. And it was like, Baltimore didn't play half of their offense. So, and of course they lost, but they'll play again this week. Whatever. All right. Well, let's talk coordinators. This is a hot topic on these shows, Clint. We always seem to talk about coordinators, and I want to start with the rumors. Pete Golding possibly to Ole Miss. I start hearing this stuff. Do you think there's any truth to this? Is this something that could happen?
I've heard plenty of these rumors that turned out to not be true, and I've heard plenty that have turned out to be true. So, I mean, I think you could go either way. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss were going after Pete Golding. Yeah. I mean, if you can pull, obviously he's a fantastic recruiter. You've got another guy, a defensive-minded guy, who understands the Nick Saban thought process and kind of how things operate. And so if you've got him on the offense and a guy who can kind of complement that on defense, then, you might have, a duo there that's ready to kind of tackle trying to implement as much as the Alabama thought process or how they build a program as humanly possible. I mean, obviously Georgia, just with Kirby Smart has been able to do it. They're playing for their second national title in the last 2 years, and they also went to another one under Kirby Smart. So, I think it would be a good hire for Ole Miss. I think Pete Golding's a good defensive coordinator. I think in some ways he's been a little bit overcomplicated in how he calls the defense and the responsibilities that he puts on some of the players. I think Nick Saban also has a little bit of a hand in that as well. It's not just Pete Golding. But this could be a situation where both teams or both parties, I guess is the way to put it, would benefit. But at the same time, I don't know if there's any truth to that whatsoever or not.
Hanging out with Clint Lamb here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Guys, like and subscribe as you hang out with us tonight. And don't forget, you can always follow BamaInsider.com for all the latest news as we talk about the coordinators. I've kind of debated this with myself, Clint. You know, I like Pete. I like the fact that there's been some stability there that Alabama did not have before him, right? But at the same time, I mean, I guess I'm kind of with a lot of the people on the message board where I feel like our defense has been inconsistent. We don't always look like an Alabama type defense. You know, I don't compare them to Georgia anymore. That's something that I think someone like a Jeremy Pruitt could bring to the table. And I guess to me, I'm not necessarily thinking, hey, we got to push Pete out the door, right? I'm just thinking if you do let him go, you better have a Jeremy Pruitt type of guy to replace him.
Yeah, I agree. And granted, I don't know what the deal is with Jeremy Pruitt, right? I mean, I've heard from certain people that, you know, he's got the green light to return to the SEC, and I've heard from others that that is far from the case, that there's still an ongoing investigation. And until that gets wrapped up, and I mean, and the punishment officially comes down, he won't be able to return to the SEC. So it's so many conflicting reports, and it's difficult to get exact information and where things stand, but that certainly is a familiar name. I think fans would certainly be happy with that should Pete Golding choose to leave, or, you know, if something ends up happening and he ends up leaving for one reason or another, regardless of what that reason is. Jeremy Pruitt would certainly be a good candidate. I don't really know what's going on with Jim Leonhard, the Wisconsin defensive coordinator, who also, he was the interim head coach, and then they hired Luke Fickell, and Jim Leonhard, I think, wanted that job, and so he was a little upset. I think he decided to part ways with the program. I don't know what's happened with him since, but I know he's a great defensive-minded guy. I think he would be a great candidate. Matt House at LSU, I thought he's done a phenomenal job in year one. Brad White at Kentucky. Kentucky's always been pretty good defensively. So there are a few candidates out there that I would look at should Pete Golding choose to leave. But the problem is that you're having these conversations, and there's been so much smoke around not only Bill O'Brien, but Pete Golding potentially leaving. You know, you want to have those conversations to kind of prepare fans for what could be coming next, should that happen. But at the same time, Pete Golding is still under contract. Bill O'Brien is not. And until something actually happens on that front, these conversations can really only go so far. So, we'll kind of, I guess, just have to wait and see what happens.
The other side of the ball, it feels like it's a done deal, right? Bill O'Brien's contract's going to be up February 1st, I believe, right? So that's what I was told. And that hasn't been renewed. I don't think that it's one of those situations where Nick Saban, like with Lane Kiffin, when he was coaching, couldn't get him out fast enough, I think there's a lot of respect there, but it just feels like he's going back to the NFL. It's a better fit for him, and that Alabama will go get someone that can bring a more dynamic offense to Tuscaloosa, which is something that we talked about a lot on this show, maybe more creativity. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, and I think the way that we've put it before, the offense has been a little bit too simplified. Like, I don't think they're doing enough variance and being innovative or creative enough offensively to really put strain on opposing defenses. And then I think defensively, they've been a little too complicated. They're trying to throw too much at opposing offenses, and that's creating situations where their own players are a little bit confused and they don't fully understand what their responsibilities are. And so offensively, and granted, I've talked a lot about this before, in college football, a lot of times you're going to naturally have that advantage, that talent discrepancy between a lot of teams. I mean, there's 130 programs, and you've got Alabama playing some of these lower tier programs and stuff. There's a much bigger gap. The NFL, even the 32nd team on any given Sunday can beat the top ranked team in the NFL. That's just how that sport operates. And so you would think that you would need to give you an edge, like coaching matters, and it certainly does. But at the same time, it's a lot tougher to fool NFL defenders, right? I mean, if you try to throw curveballs at them, these guys are all the best at what they do. They were the best at their college teams. So it becomes less about what, you're able to call and more about who you have operating what you're calling. And so I think that was kind of Bill O'Brien's problem, is he was used to the NFL game. He didn't really have to be too innovative. And I think that that's a little bit of a struggle. Even though Alabama has a much bigger talent gap between them and a lot of their opponents, you still have to be able to utilize your matchups to the best of their ability. And we just didn't really see enough of that, or haven't seen enough of that with him as the offensive coordinator. And really, there's a lot of great candidates out there. I think that, Garrett Riley at TCU would certainly be a good candidate. Kendall Briles, maybe. Jeff Grimes, Phil Longo, Cliff Kingsbury, the Arizona Cardinals head coach. He was just fired today. I think, with the way that he likes to call plays and stuff, if he only had the play calling responsibilities, I think he would do a very good job. Dan Mullen, who's been, taking this year off, I think he's a candidate, or would be a candidate. And there's tons of others, Alex Atkins, the offensive coordinator for Florida State, and Casey Woods, the offensive coordinator for SMU. Just really, I could list off I could rattle off 30 names right now that would be viable candidates. It's a matter of, what Alabama's looking for and what they will want to target, should Bill O'Brien choose to leave.
Right. How do you think the process works? Do those guys call Nick Saban? Does he call them? Does he have someone reach out to him? I've just always been curious. I wonder how the whole thing moves when Cliff Kingsbury got fired today, but we've been talking about him as a potential offensive coordinator at Alabama for a couple weeks now, and he was an NFL head coach.
Yeah, if they went that route, it's what they did with Bill O'Brien, right? It was a similar situation. He had some college experience. That college experience was from a while ago. Granted, I think, Cliff Kingsbury, his experience on the college level is a lot more recent. I think 2018 is when he got fired from Texas Tech. So he's a lot more current. I don't think it would be as difficult of a transition from a recruiting standpoint and things like that. The thing you got to question with him is from a personality standpoint, he was kind of, not saying this in a bad way, but he's kind of the young pretty boy guy that, was the NFL head coach, and he had all the responsibility and it was done his way. Are you going to go and take a bunch of ass chewings from Nick Saban? You might be willing to, you might not. I don't know. I couldn't answer that question. And I don't know if necessarily culturally Alabama would be his prime destination, because he's been in Arizona. He was in Texas. We know he's got property on the West Coast. He enjoys that lifestyle. And before he actually took the Arizona Cardinals head coaching position, he had been offered and accepted to be the OC at USC. So that might be an area where he would rather be, is on that side of the country. I don't know, but I certainly think that a guy like that and a guy like, Garrett Riley, because of his success at TCU, I don't think he's getting done with a playoff national championship push and immediately calling Alabama saying, I want to be your OC. Those are the kind of candidates that maybe, you got to reach out to. But I guarantee you that there's no short list of people who are calling, agents who are calling, wanting that job should Bill O'Brien choose to return to the NFL. So I think it's a little bit of both, just depending on the candidate. But either way, I think that there are a lot of viable options out there. Like I said, should Bill O'Brien choose to make that exit.
And do you think it would be his choice or Nick Saban's choice or mutual?
Well, it was always a 2-year deal, right? It was a 2-year contract. That was kind of the expectations. You stick around. I think at that point in time, with the way that things had ended in Houston, just a mismanagement of the roster with him kind of also having, GM responsibilities. And then just the way things ended, you had a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. You were able to only get so far. You started to show some regression. He needed to rebuild his, reputation as far as being a play caller, and you get to go learn under arguably the best football coach, not just NFL or college, but just in general of all time, in Nick Saban. That's certainly something that's going to help you. But I think that was always his intention, for it to be a couple of year deal. And the recruiting side of things, that's a lot that you got to do on a year in, year out basis. I've always thought he would go back to the NFL. I didn't think he'd want to do the recruiting thing for a long period of time, like stepping up to be a head coach. And now you got to run all that stuff. So I know that this sounds very, cliche, or, whatever you want to call it. I think it would be very mutual. I think Alabama would probably be ready to move on to someone else. And I think Bill O'Brien would probably be ready to move on and have a new responsibility elsewhere.
Good stuff, Clint. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight a little bit earlier than normal. What are you working on over at BamaInsider.com?
Yeah, we've got a great thing going on right now, talking about, veterans and risers and breakout candidates and newcomers, just both on the offensive and the defensive side of the football, an article for each, where we're discussing guys that fans should be excited about heading into 2023. And then also updating the roster and where things stand as far as scholarships are concerned. You've got guys that are leaving for the NFL. You've got guys who have entered the transfer portal. You've got guys coming in, the recruiting class. So just keeping up with where Alabama stands on that front, potential additions to the transfer portal. All that stuff is being covered over at Bama Insider. So if you haven't already, definitely go subscribe.
Awesome. Clint, great stuff, man. And I look forward to catching up again real soon.
Absolutely, brothers. Good talking to you, Mick.
You too, as always. And you guys can check out Clint Lamb's work, BamaInsider.com. On 3 right now, $29.99 until August 31st. And then on August 31st this year, 2023, that's a pretty good deal. And $9.99 a month if you want to become a member. We got a lot of great stuff going on. We're going to be covering Alabama as they march to, obviously, some new coaches here soon, and this #1 recruiting class, and who knows what's going to happen in the transfer portal and all that. But let's talk recruiting with our guy who jumps on with us every Monday. And actually, I see Jimmy on there. So let me reverse gears here and let me throw him up. Jimmy Stein.
We can talk recruiting.
Let's talk recruiting, man.
Happy to do it.
Who are you?
As well as Hastings, but I'll do it.
Who are you recruiting as Alabama's next coordinator?
That's a good question. Have to have an opening first. I'm pretty. I was listening to Clint's interview. That was good stuff. Have to have an opening first, but as he said, the Bill O'Brien's contract expires soon, unless there's an extension, and I don't rule that out entirely. I'm in the 80 to 90% sure Bill O'Brien's going to head back to the NFL. I was reading a lot of NFL reports today, Mick, and Bill O'Brien's name's associated with up to as many as 5 potential offensive coordinator jobs and maybe even a head coach job. You have to think Bill O'Brien's going to prefer the NFL. As much as I'm a college football first guy, Mick, the NFL just feels like a better job these days. And by that, let's just start with the fact that literally in NFL contracts with assistant coaches, they get like 8 weeks of vacation. In college, you get 2. I mean, right. that alone, before you ever get to the money and no recruiting. But I think Bill O'Brien is going to head back to the NFL. And if he does, it will be a fascinating search for a new offensive coordinator. Nick Saban himself said that he would like to post Bryce, get back to more of a running the ball approach, more RPOs. Under Bryce, the RPOs were simply he did have RPOs, but Bryce was either going to hand the ball off or throw it. He wasn't going to run it himself, which is a huge weapon in the RPO game. And I think Alabama would like to get back to that post Bryce. Whoever Alabama hires, Mick, as the offensive coordinator, it's going to be someone that has experience at building and operating an offense where the RPO is a central part of things.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hanging out with Jimmy Stein here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Monday Night Quarterback as we roll towards tonight's national championship game between Georgia, the team that Alabama lost to last year in the title game and the national championship game, beat in the SEC title game. Let's not forget that. Handily, too. And TCU looking to be an upstart against the Crimson Tide. Talking about upstarts, I'm gonna change gear. I know this is Monday Night Quarterback, and we're gonna get back into some more football here, but we got to talk about Nate Oates. This Bama basketball sold out against Kentucky, and pretty good. I mean, the way that they put the beat down on the Cats, sent them out of town. They're up to number 4 in the polls right now. Wow, this is amazing. I mean, this to me is a different animal. What this guy's been able to accomplish, Nate Oates, in Alabama basketball.
Well, the season's just, the SEC season's just started, just 3 games down and 15 to go. But you are at the halfway mark. People, you play around, 30 games, 31 games. Alabama's, just 15 games out. So you're really at the halfway point. I would say, Mick, in my lifetime, really, let's say my cognizant lifetime, this is the best first half of a season I've ever seen Alabama basketball. I mean, Alabama's been very good before. There's been some really good teams that have won the SEC, won the SEC tournament, had some success in the NCAA tournament. This is the best team.
Yeah.
And what I like so much about it, there's several things. One is you've got a team full of high-end guys that are going to play at the next level. They're going to play in the NBA, but they're an unselfish bunch. They play hard. They're committed to the defensive end. They don't take a lot of bad shots. It's deep with contributors. And as much as it's the Brandon Miller show, and he is a show, he may be the most gifted player that's ever played here. Yet Brandon also embodies this hard hat mentality that Nate Oates is always preaching to his guys. You know, Brandon doesn't take bad shots. He's not a selfish player. He passes the ball to his open teammates. He doesn't take a lot of bad shots. He plays good on the defensive end. He's won the hard hat award a few times himself. I think when your best player is also one of your best kids and he's unselfish and sort of sends the message to the rest of the roster, it's so invaluable. So I'm just couldn't be any more impressed with this bunch, and not just because of the winning. Of course, the winning's great. That's why you're number 4. But the way they go about it tells me that they can accomplish some really special things at Alabama this year. And hey, winning the SEC is a really big deal. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, Mick, but they have an excellent chance. Tennessee's very good. This Kentucky team's going to get better. Arkansas is good. LSU, Auburn, lots of good teams in the SEC. But this team has a chance to win the league. And Alabama just hadn't done that a lot in its history. That in and of itself would make this an extremely special season.
Yeah, it's normally a league dominated by Kentucky, you know, and you'll have a Tennessee and an Arkansas pop up every once in a while and some other schools. But since Nate Oates arrived at Alabama, it's been, to me, it's been unbelievable. Even last year, how frustrated were we with all the turnovers and everything else? Then all these guys transfer, and then he goes out and he just brings in the perfect guys to fit with the team that he already had. You talk about Miller. I mean, he could be the best basketball player Alabama's ever had. I mean, and I know we're not Kentucky. There's not a huge list of superstars, but there's been some good players, right? Yeah. And this guy's as good as any of them. As a freshman, probably a one and done. Jimmy, I'm just concerned. Alabama, and they put out they were going to make the new stadium that they were going to build. And I was excited about that. They've been talking about it. I've broadcasted games at Coleman Coliseum. I'm not a fan. It's just not a good building for basketball. We don't have luxury suites there. The sight lines are weird because it's like an airplane locker. They kind of go up. And I want Nate to stay for a long time. And now all of a sudden, hearing Greg Burns, and rumors and some of the stuff he's saying about money, that maybe they don't have this on the forefront. And the reason I bring that up, and I see all you guys in the comments section, by the way, Roll Tide to you, is that I'm afraid that if they don't take care of this guy with a great arena and the right contract and have NIL money, he's going to be somewhere like Kentucky.
Right. Well, it could happen. I mean, with Nate Oates' success, other big college programs have noticed, and they're going to call. And I even think the NBA is going to come call at some point too. So I think at some point Alabama's going to have to fend off or try to fend off, whether it's a blue blood college program like Kentucky or a program with a ton of money like Texas or any of the NBA teams. I think it's not realistic. It's an inevitability. Really. But in terms of what Alabama is doing to keep Nate, first of all, Alabama gave Nate a tremendous contract the last time, 2 years ago, after they won the SEC tournament, made the Sweet 16. Before that, we even got to that point, Greg Byrne ran to Nate Oates and put an extension and a raise on his desk, which he happily signed quickly. I think Coach Oates is very happy in Tuscaloosa, and Alabama's been very good to him so far. There's probably another raise and an extension that could happen at the end of this season. But as far as the arena goes, two things, Mick. Number one is the public comments from Greg Byrne, from other sources, and that, hey, the construction was sort of, the plans are drawn. There is a plan. It's on its way. But then construction costs went up enormously. And why pay 40% more, I think was a term I heard. It costs 40% more than the initial estimate based on construction costs. We got to wait for that to go down. But here's also what happened, and that's NIL. And I know a lot of fans don't want to hear that. What fans want is, no, you have to have a great NIL program and you have to build a new arena. Well, while they're at it, why don't we build a spaceship and and I mean, there's only so much. I mean, and that's for anyone. But I think because of NIL in particular, you kind of have to wait and get a handle on what is this going to cost? Because let's be honest, Alabama doesn't have the same list of boosters that a Texas or a Texas A&M has, where they have 30 or 40 graduates who are literal billionaires. Alabama doesn't have that situation. The same great people who are going to fund a new arena are the same people you go to fund the NIL and have their own businesses and do the things NIL wise to make you competitive. So I am sure, I'm not going to speak for Nate. I heard what he said about the arena. That's true. But I'm 100% sure, without even talking to him, what Coach Oates needs first and foremost is a well-oiled NIL machine, because that's what you need to compete to get players. Just think of this, Mick. Let's say you're a 17-year-old basketball player, and I offer you two things. This isn't how recruiting works. This is a recruiting fantasy, but I think it makes the point. But the point is, if you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, and I say, okay, Mick Gillespie, this great point guard, I'm going to give you two options. You can make $250,000 playing basketball, but we're going to keep playing in the same high school gym you just played in. Or we're going to give you absolutely nothing, but you're going to play in a palace that has, there's gold and marble all in the bathrooms of this place. It's so nice. And it's this unbelievable facility, and you get the privilege of playing in it, but we're not going to give you a thing. All those kids are going to choose the first option. They're going to choose, I'll keep playing in my high school gym and you pay me $200,000. Let's do that. So NIL has to come first in this new world, and then an arena. Alabama is one of the haves and not the have-nots. I think Alabama can do both. Mm-hmm. They just kind of figure it out and get a handle on things before you go spending your money on something that's not as important as the top priority.
Yeah. Well, look, the problem is that if they don't have both, somebody else that does is going to come in and get this guy. But I didn't even think about the NBA. I mean, I'm just thoroughly impressed. I got to tell you, I'm not I'm not as big of a basketball fan as I am college football, but he makes you one, and the fact that he is so in tune with the community, he knows everybody. He's a great guy. I can remember broadcasting. Anthony Grant was the coach. He was just a complete jerk to everybody, like behind the scenes. We're going, this guy is the worst, right? This guy's amazing. Like you make a joke with him, he knows tripping in is free, for Pete's sake, right? So, and the style of basketball, I was kind of concerned, to be honest, when we first hired him, because I liked Avery Johnson. I thought, this guy, I like this guy. He seems like a good, the team was okay. This is an entirely different level of success. We've never seen this before. We have a chance with this team, Jimmy, to get to the Final Four. And I say that, and I mean it. This is a Final Four type team. Got to have some luck, got to stay healthy, and all that kind of stuff. Draws got to be there. But this is the type of team that gets you there. And I just don't want to see that end. And, when you start talking about money, there's somebody else is going to come in from Texas and be like, look, we got an arena and we got this, but I agree with what you're saying too. I mean, if you're paying these guys, their NIL money's there, they're going to want to play wherever, where they're getting paid to, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, Alabama's a have, not a have-not. I'm not saying up here screaming poverty at all. Alabama's one of the haves. But there does have to be a plan that makes sense, and it's got to start with the NIL, and then it's got to be a new arena when construction costs are a little down, and who knows when that may happen. Hey, but one thing about it would be great to have a new arena. I would love to have one, and we hear Nate Oates would love to have one. doing pretty good with what we got. I mean, like you
true.
said, this is a Final Four level team in terms of the talent level. It is working. The arena has not been a problem recruiting, or Brandon Miller and Jaden Bradley and Noah Clowney and Charles Bediako. Those guys wouldn't be here if it was a huge, huge problem. But nevertheless, you have to keep improving or you're going to fall behind. I know that's Alabama's plan. All these sellout crowds help. All the success helps. And I think there's no reason for anyone to worry that Nate Oates is just going to jump ship because he doesn't get supported by Alabama basketball fans or the administration. I don't believe that's true at all. I think he would tell you that's not true. But at the same time, you have to do things to maintain where you are in the basketball world. I think the charge here, Mick, for Alabama basketball is, let's not let this be a one-off. What do we got to, we got to this high spot on the mountain. What do we got to do to stay there? And that includes NIL, that includes an arena, and it includes a lot of support from the fans to help make it all happen. And these sellout crowds are a good start. I know even Saturday against LSU, I looked today and just happened to look on the rolltide.com, and it's pretty much the only tickets left are a handful of singles, throughout the building.
Nice. Well, keep going, guys. Keep going to the basketball game and support this team, because something special is happening, and your bracket will know that when it's bracketology time, and you got a chance to really pick a team to make a run. At least they'll be favored to do so. Jimmy, thank you. Let's do it again next Monday night. And don't forget, Jimmy's on BamaInsider.com. What you got cooking over there?
Oh, man, one of the things we're going to do this week, some say it's been a week and a half too long, but I was really waiting for a good spot to have everyone's attention. But we're going to do a rewatch thread of the Kansas State game, where I rewatch the game possession by possession with comments on each possession, Alabama's possession, then a Kansas State possession. We single out the players who played exceptionally well, sometimes single out players that might have made a goof here and there, that they catch some heat for that. But what I'm going to do, and since it's the end of the season, there's going to be a specific emphasis on kids that we believe will be back next year. We won't spend a lot of time going, wow, that was a great play by Emil Ecke, or we're going to be taking a closer look at maybe a J.C. Latham and a Tyler Booker, kids that are coming back next season. So we're going to be doing that on the board as soon as we can get this national championship game behind us. All
right. Well, we'll do that. And you guys can check out Jimmy on the message board always at BamaInsider.com. And don't forget, right now, you want to be part of BamaInsider.com on 3, $29.99 until August 31st, 2023, or $9.99 a month. And this thing's getting bigger and better. We got the best in the business with us here, and we want you guys to be part of it as well. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks so much, Mick.
Normally, we end the show with Jimmy. Not today. We're going to talk recruiting now. I'm going to set him right back up where I was setting him up, and then I forgot, and now I remember that we were going to bring you on later in the show. We kind of had to flip-flop things to be able to get off to watch that national championship game, but he's always covering recruiting. You guys know I'm Joseph Hastings, a regular part of Monday Night QB here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. How's it going, man? Look like you got a fresh haircut, ready to go.
I had to. It was the Under Armour game that I was going to be attending, and I had to make sure I look good for Orlando, Mick. But yeah, it's been a really exciting time for Alabama basketball, and recruiting too on the trails. There's so much happening, and I'm just trying to make sure that my haircut is intact throughout the whole process.
Hey, I got to get one right now. I was just saying that earlier today. Like, I've let it go for a while, so I might need to meet your barber. So, well, let's talk some recruiting. You've been to all these games, these big time the contests where all the big signees are playing, and some of the best recruits in the country. What can you tell everyone? Jarvis, who's hanging out with us, Jeff Gill, Jersey Dolphins. Congratulations, Dolphins, for making the playoffs, by the way. What can you tell all of our viewers and followers about what you've seen?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I did get to go to Orlando, but I did not get to go to San Antonio for the All-American Bowl. I was boarded on my flight, ready to go to San Antonio on Wednesday morning, and then they told us that there were some weather issues. They had to cancel the flight. I couldn't get there until Thursday night, and it just didn't seem worth it with how much I was going to be missing. But, I did get to follow it from afar. And here's what I can tell you, Mick. Alabama's bringing in some talented prospects. We talked the other day about what I saw in Orlando from the likes of Jalen Hale and Olas Alnin and Richard Young and others there. I can tell you just based off what I've seen from the practice clips and the game itself that the All-American Bowl, it went pretty well for Alabama's guys. You talk about Keon Keeley. He earned the On3 MVP for the week of San Antonio, not only for his performances in practice, but for what he did in the game. He recorded a sack on Saturday in that All-American Bowl. You look at what, some of those other guys were able to do. Caleb Downs, Justice Haynes, a couple of Peach State prospects. Downs had an interception. Justice Haynes was the game's leading rusher with 87 yards on 10 total attempts. Yanze Pierre was listed as one of the top performers by On3's Charles Power. He was really impressed with what he was able to do, as a pass rusher, going up against some of the top offensive tackles in the country. And then Caden Proctor, too. He's a 5-star recruit, flipped from Iowa to Alabama. He did really well in San Antonio by all accounts and was one of the better looking offensive linemen out there. So, look, Mick, it's just a very exciting time for Alabama when you consider the class that's been put together, not only the players in these games, but also the JUCO prospects that they brought in, some of those other 4-stars who weren't invited to this game, but very well could have earned a spot. Too. I think it just would have been too many Bama guys if you invited everyone, because it's funny, there were 12 participants who are Alabama signees in these two bowl games. 6 of them, there was actually 6 others who accepted invitations but couldn't because of injury or just wanting to stay at Alabama. You look at Eli Holstein, Jaleel Hurley, Dylan Lonergan, Hunter Osborne. Those were a few guys. James Smith, Quay Rousseau. They accepted invitations to play in these games but didn't. So even without 6 participants, Alabama still showed out really well with their signees and just very dominant performance. You see the clips there. Keon Keeley just had a monster week in San Antonio.
Yeah, and that's really fun when you get a chance to, see these guys play in the regular high school games, but then you put them with the best of the best, the fastest, the strongest, the guys with the great ability. And then you even get to see what they look like more. Do you see this talent like standing out above the pack when they're in these games?
Yeah, no, the talent, absolutely. I mentioned it before. Justice Haynes was the game's leading rusher. Caleb Downs had an interception. I think it was one of 2 interceptions in the game. Keon Keeley had a sack. Caden Proctor seemed to really hold his own in pass protection, and he's a really versatile prospect who can play inside or outside. Yanze Pierre had a fumble recovery on Justice Haynes, actually. Funny enough, he didn't cause the fumble, but he did secure the fumble recovery. The Under Armour game, they didn't really show out too much as they did in the All-American Bowl. I think the All-American Bowl is just a little bit more. There's just a little bit more talent and a little more opportunity to show out in that game. The Under Armour game was a 14-7 ball game, not really too much scoring there, a lot to be desired. But throughout the week and throughout just the practices and the games itself, it just really goes to show that Alabama signed not only the best class in the 2023 cycle, that's undisputed, but they signed one of the greatest recruiting classes ever. Wow. And that's not an exaggeration. That's not, me being a Bama reporter or anything like that. They legitimately, by the numbers, by the eye test, by all metrics, signed one of the greatest recruiting classes in the modern era. And look, there's another one out there, Cormani McClain. A lot of recruits in San Antonio and Orlando were making their pitch to Cormani. He's unsigned. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, but this class could get that much better.
Mike Coleman, Roll Tide, man. Thank you for the super chat, and thank all of you guys for hitting us up with super chats on the show, man. They go a long way to help all of us out, and man, we appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us tonight. All right, we'll go right into it. Tell us about McClain. I mean, is there a chance that he comes to Bama?
Yeah, I'm going to get into McClain. I want to answer Mike's question real quiky, just because, I was
able to go ahead.
These guys in person. He talked about the game changer on the O-line. You have to look at Caden Proctor. He did an interview on Friday, and with the departures along the O-line, due to the transfer portal and also graduation, he said that he's not expecting to play because, you don't want to say that you're just going to come in and start right away. But, he believes that he's going to get in there. He's going to be able to make an impact, whether that's inside or outside. So you look at Caden Proctor, he's the offensive lineman in this class that I would bet, if you had to place bets on this, I don't know if there's any over-unders or anything like that out there in Vegas for which Alabama old linemen are starting. But, Caden Proctor would be that guy just because of, once again, the versatility, how big he is. Our Charles Powers said that he's one of the more well-built offensive linemen that he's seen in person, called it overall burly size, which was an awesome way to describe it. But Caden's someone to watch out for. And someone who's the man on defense, you have to look at Caleb Downs. I'm going to refer to Charles once again. Charles said that out of all the signees in the 2023 class, he's the top instant impact prospect when you look at, the ability to affect the game right away. With the departures from Alabama secondary and just his intelligence, how he sees the field, his vision, how he attacks the ball, comes downhill, makes solid form tackles. Caleb Downs is that guy. And I would be surprised if he isn't starting at some point next season. I think really highly of him. I've been watching this young man since he was a sophomore. He's got it all. He legitimately has it all. Any weaknesses he has isn't glaring. It isn't anything that you should be concerned about. It's like very small stuff that will be tweaked by Nick Saban and company. He's an early enrollee. I think Alabama fans should be really excited about him. And you talked about Cormani McClain. Caleb is trying to get him on board. The whole class is trying to do so. I think it's really interesting with his recruitment. His is one that it's really unpredictable. You saw him commit to Miami in October when all the momentum was going to Florida. I put in a prediction on the day of his commitment to Florida. Alabama was expecting Florida. I can tell you that. That was the expectation, and he ended up going to Miami. Didn't sign during the early signing period, which was a shock. When his mother tweeted that out, that was a really big surprise. And then he's saying that he's going to sign on January 15th, which you can't do. You cannot sign a binding letter of intent until February 1st. I think he was referring to financial aid papers. So this whole recruitment has just been a little bit all over the place in terms of like not knowing really what to expect. And I'm not really too surprised by that. Cormani is going through a lot. I've seen him in person a few times. I can tell you he does not like the interview process. He does not like the media spotlight. And I think he felt the pressure of it kind of getting to him. And it's tough. He's 17, 18-year-old in high school, having to deal with that, having to deal with so many fan bases wanting you. You want to please everybody. You can't. You can only choose one school. Colorado's absolutely in the mix there. Miami, of course, he's committed to them. That interview that he gave, though, at the Under Armour All-America game did not seem too reassuring for Miami fans. He kind of laughed a little bit, toward the end of that interview and kind of made it seem like it's a little bit open there. Alabama would love to get him on campus for an official visit, but we'll see. I'm not making a prediction one way or the other. I already got bit by that one time. But Alabama definitely would love to have him in this class.
It's a tough job, man. I mean, I think everybody watching right now knows that you guys have a really difficult task. I mean, because everything might tell you one thing, and that may be exactly what we were going to see, like McClain going to Miami, and then all of a sudden he just changes his mind and decides he's going to Bama, which would be great for us, right? So I'm always amazed at how you and Andrew Bone, you guys figure this out, and you're right so much.
And sometimes it's like literally the last day or 24 hours before. You look at Desmond Ricks, a bunch of predictions were being made on Tuesday for LSU, and then the next day it was Alabama. Damari Brown, there was some momentum for Alabama, and then it's, switched back to Miami. It's just so tough in this day and age. Things can change from literally 1 minute to the next. Peyton Bowen's recruitment was, the shining example of that, where you saw him be a Notre Dame commit for so long, flip to Oregon, and then sign with Oklahoma the next day. It was, yeah, that literally happened last month. It's just a weird day and age. And you see that picture there. You got Cormani on the left, and then Alabama signees at the Under Armour All-America game. That's a great photo. And Richard Young, Jarvis mentioned it in the chat. Richard Young is on Cormani. It's funny because Cormani made that announcement at the Under Armour All-America game that he was signing January 15th. Richard Young actually alluded to that on Thursday, the Thursday prior, saying that he's going to be signing on January 15th. So he's in the know with Cormani's recruitment, and he wants him. And I'll tell you something. If you've been following Richard Young's Twitter, when he says that he wants somebody, he typically gets them. So we'll see.
Nice. Well, great stuff, Joseph. Anything else before we break up the show and head to our televisions to see a champion crowned tonight?
Yeah. Nothing really too much on my end. We're going to be having junior days coming up. There's a big transfer portal target in town this weekend. I encourage you all to go to Bama Insider to see who that is. There's going to be a couple big visit weekends. There's a Battle Miami 7-on-7 tournament, January 21st to the 22nd that I'm going to be at. A lot of top prospects in each class go to that event. So I'm very, very excited about it. And just ready for tonight's game between the Lakers and the Nuggets. That's no, I'm just kidding.
Look at I see where you're going right now.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I believe Georgia wins it pretty easily, but TCU, they may put up a fight. We'll see.
Can Tom Brady be stopped?
I'm going to that game, so I'm really hoping that we can stop him. I got my Cowboys helmet up there, putting out good juju for the Cowboys out there, and very excited about that one. The Dallas Cowboys, they let me down yesterday, but hopefully next Monday they come back.
I like those white uniforms they wore. I think I texted you. Those are sweet. I've enjoyed the different, color change uniforms that they've worn on Thursday nights. But I think that was my favorite one.
Yeah, against the Titans, that was amazing. I wish they can bring it back. I don't know what they're going to be wearing on Monday. They better not be wearing the same uniforms they wore against Washington. Those need to be burned.
Burn them down.
Yeah, burn them down. Seriously. Don't want to see them again.
Well, hey, roll tide. And don't forget, Joseph is on the BamaInsider.com page every day. And he's over there covering Alabama, recruiting nationally. You can get all the coverage there as well. We're part of On 3, changing the face of team coverage, Joseph, $29.99. That gets you all the coverage until August 31st of 2023. Or $9.99 a month. So as you guys can tell, you better jump on board because you don't want to be left behind. What do you got going on over there?
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of feature pieces on 2024 prospects. We're really going to be getting into those guys. Obviously, monitoring Cormani and the transfer portal target that is going to be in town this weekend. But 2024, it's their time. They're the center of attention now. And look, Mick, I'm not going to call my shot just now. I'm not going to do that just yet. It's too early. But Bama could get close to this 2023 class with how well they're recruiting early on in 2024. It's they're setting the foundation up really well in 2024 to get close to that level of caliber. And look, apparently I was hearing from people that the dynasty is over, that Nick Saban lost his touch with recruits. The numbers say otherwise. He's recruiting as well as ever, if not better.
Oh, I love to hear that. Warms the spirit. Thanks to all of you guys in the comments section tonight for all of the great stuff. Robert, thank you for jumping in, man. Roll Tide, love the Pirate. Mike for the super chat. All you guys for hanging out with us. And don't forget, we do this every Monday night. We'll swing it back to 7 next week. When we talk about, a lot more. And I guess we'll be getting into the draft and all that stuff. We'll be talking about recruiting as we move forward, as always, on the show. In some basketball. Look, if the basketball team keeps playing like this, we got to talk about them. So a lot of great stuff going on in the capstone right now. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. We appreciate you guys more than you know. You've made this channel what it is. And so make sure you share and make sure you hit the bell. That way you'll know anytime we go live with these shows. So we changed the time because we want to watch the football game in 10 minutes. Yeah, you'll know that we started early tonight. Maybe something breaks. Somebody signs, somebody leaves. As all these coaches come and go. We're going to have information on that. We'll have videos that we pop up. Guys transfer out, guys transfer in. We're going to be on that as well. So make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And stay a part of it. And talked about it before. Our show's brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. 1 to 5 bedroom units. You're talking about 900 to 3,000 square feet. The incredible Wolf or Sub-Zero kitchens. You got the oversized balconies. Maybe you're going to be looking at Bryant-Denny, maybe downtown Tuscaloosa, the Walk of Champions, the Capstone. Really, it's just amazing. Denny Chimes is out there, the Strip. WestgateAL.com. If you want to rent, you can rent those when you come to town, or buy one, and they're great. They really are. The parking's fantastic, and that's also where we host the post-game show on the roof, the Skygate Club. So for our entire crew, and what a great night it was, Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein, Joseph Hastings, Chris Daughtry behind the scenes, Kyle Henderson, who puts this all together. I'm Mick Gillespie. We're going to go watch this game and see what happens. I tell you, it's hard to watch it, but I'm an SEC man, so I'm pulling for the Dogs tonight. And we'll get into this maybe next week as well, if it's worth talking about. Roll Tide, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you all.